Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today, in what is going to become a series of videos regarding at-home Robonomics use cases, we are going to look at how to connect up IoT devices to the Robonomics parachain via the use of a Raspberry Pi and a Xiaomi gateway. This is the second video in the series, and if you are interested in the previous video where we connect an air quality sensor to the Robonomics sensor network, that video is linked in the top right. First, let's go through the required components that you need to carry out this project. You will need a Raspberry Pi version 3 or 4. In this example, we use a version 4. We would recommend purchasing some form of starter kit, which will include some other accessories such as a case, SD card, heat sinks, fans, and HDMI to micro HDMI cable. You will need a Xiaomi gateway or control hub. In our case, we purchased a Mi Smart Home sensor kit, but this is not necessary. The main thing that you need is the control hub. You need a temperature and humidity sensor. In our case, we used one from the company Aqua, which is compatible with the Xiaomi control hub. You may also need to buy a micro SD card reader if your computer does not have a micro SD card slot. And you'll need some basic peripherals, a USB keyboard, and a monitor to connect up to the Raspberry Pi. In the description, there will be Amazon links to everything that we purchased for this project, apart from the keyboard and the monitor. Our first step is to download the prepared image from the Robonomics GitHub. This is the easiest way to set up this project, so head on over to the Robonomics GitHub and download the image. The Robonomics GitHub is linked to in the description. Next, we need to download the Raspberry Pi Imager software onto our computer. It is also linked in the GitHub. Once the image is downloaded, run the Raspberry Pi Imager software, and under the Operating System drop-down, select Use Custom, and then navigate to the image file which you have just downloaded. Then, in the storage section, select the SD card and then press Write. The files will now be written to the SD card and verified. For this demonstration, we are using a computer with the Windows operating system. Due to this, the SD card will now become unreadable, and we must do the next steps in the Raspberry Pi itself. If you are using a Mac or Linux based system, you should be able to do this next step on your computer, and you won't need to use a Raspberry Pi for this next step. Insert the SD card into the Raspberry Pi along with all the other components such as the keyboard, screens, power, etc. Wait for the Raspberry Pi to boot up. We then need to log into the Raspberry Pi with the following details. So the login will be Ubuntu and the password is also Ubuntu, all lowercase. The system will then ask you to change your password, make it something memorable because you will need to enter this password a few times during this setup. With the password changed, we can then enter the following command on screen. This should then place you into the correct directory to carry out the next step. We need to modify this file with the following text on screen. Make sure that you replace the your Wi-Fi name and your Wi-Fi password with your actual Wi-Fi name and password. If you are only using Wi-Fi and are not using Ethernet, you can edit this file to look like the following. So once the Raspberry Pi is connected to the internet, you must find your address in the local network. So you need to enter the following command and find your IP address, which should look like this. So now we can connect to our Raspberry Pi over SSH. So on your computer, in my example, we're going to use a command prompt, type in the following command. Next, we need to give the Raspberry Pi a substrate account. So go ahead and type in the command on screen now. And in that file, we need to add a mnemonic seed. So go ahead and save that file, Control S, and then Control X to exit out of that file. And then what we need to do now is restart the Robonomics control service. So type in the command that is on screen now. And now we can begin to connect our IoT devices. Because we are using the Xiaomi gateway or control hub method, we want to go ahead and download the Xiaomi Home app from either the Google Store or the Apple Store. Once it is downloaded, we need to connect up our Xiaomi control hub, so make sure that it's plugged in and press the button on the control hub down for 5 seconds until it flashes yellow, and then connect up the control hub to your Xiaomi Home app. We can also go ahead and connect our sensor at this time. So go ahead and click the button on the sensor for around 5 seconds until the blue light flashes. So go ahead and add a device, head on down to the sensors section and click on temperature humidity sensors. Now at this point, select your aqua temperature and humidity sensor. In my case, it said that this device is not compatible, but if we go back, we can choose the other sensor and it connected perfectly fine. With the devices connected to the Xiaomi Home app, we need to make sure that we are logged into the Raspberry Pi as the Home Assistant user. So go ahead and use the following command on screen. On your computer, open a web browser and navigate to the following address. You need to replace the Raspberry address with your actual Raspberry Pi IP address, which we previously found. Create your Home Assistant account. Once logged in, head on over to the Configurations tab and then click Integrations, and then add integration and search for Xiaomi. Then you need to log in with your Xiaomi cloud account, which we created on our smartphone previously. If during this section you face an error that says there are no devices connected to your Xiaomi cloud account, you need to head on over to your Xiaomi Home app on your smartphone and change your country to Russia. And then on this login panel here, make sure the cloud server country is also set to Russia. Your Mi Control Hub should now appear in the integrations page. Head on over to your terminal and enter the command on screen now. We need to edit this file with some information which will link our sensors to the Robonomics system. On the Home Assistant page, you need to go to Configuration and then Entities. Then you need to replace the entity IDs in this command, which is linked in the description also, with your actual entity IDs from the humidity, pressure and temperature sensors. Then we need to execute the command on screen now to restart the Home Assistant service, and you need to enter your password, which we made at the very beginning. You should now be able to go to your Robonomics account on Subscan and see the extrinsics being generated. However, depending on when you downloaded the image, you may have an error due to the image pointing to the wrong version of the parachain. It is pointing to the Frontier Network parachain and not the Kusama parachain. So we will quickly show you how to fix this issue. So if your extrinsics are not appearing, you need to go ahead and log into the Raspberry Pi as the Ubuntu user and type in this command. And if you get the error as shown on screen now, then you need to do the following. So go ahead and log in as the Home Assistant user again, and then enter the following command, and it should open a new file. We then need to go ahead and change the URL, which currently says the Frontier network, and change that to the Kusama network as shown on screen. Everybody should now be able to go to their Robonomics account on Subscan and see the extrinsics being generated. If we open one of the extrinsics, we should be able to see the record parameter. Now, if we go back to the terminal and paste in these commands as the Home Assistant user, and then copy the record data into this command as shown on screen. And paste that into the terminal, we should now be presented with the decrypted data from our sensor. We hope that you found this project interesting. This is just one example of connecting real-world IoT devices to the Robonomics parachain. We will gradually increase the level of complexity of these videos. Some of the Robonomics engineers have connected more complex devices to the parachain, such as coffee machines and even electric manipulators in an industrial setting. Eventually, data from sensors on our network will be able to be used to control other IoT devices. If you want to learn more or even discuss this video, then please head on over to the Robonomics Discord server, which is linked in the description below. Thanks, and see you next time.